Chapter 5. Oops. Where did she come from? She hadn't been anywhere in sight when we'd started this deal, but she was in sight now and storming straight towards me. Have we mentioned that when she's in a bad mood, you can see it in her manner of walking? It's true. She has what we call the walk of anger. She leans forward at the waist, swings her arms, and sets her feet down hard on every step. You'd almost describe it as stomping, only ladies don't stomp, right? Oh, and the expression on her face was a little scary. That's what I was seeing, and to be honest, it made me uneasy. I released the turkey from the grip of my grapple and hurried over to the cat. Pete, we've got a problem. Do you see who's coming? He nodded. She looks mad, doesn't she? He nodded. I think I'm in trouble. He nodded. This isn't part of our plan. I never thought. There was something about the way he looked at me in that moment. It wasn't much, just a tiny curl of the mouth and the cut of his eyes, but it caused the rafters to start falling in the attic of my mind. Wait a second. He fluffed and fluttered his eyelids and whispered, Congratulations, you won. Well, I'd better be going. You and Sally May have things to discuss. And with that, the little snake, the little liar, the little cheat went scampering back to the yard, leaving me with, oh, brother! Do you see the meaning of this? I hope you don't. It's so embarrassing, I don't want to talk about it, but there's no way we can avoid it. Sally May arrived on the scene, and boy, was she mad. I knew what was coming and began preparing for the storm. Flipping switches in control room of my mind, I activated the emergency remorse program, which gave us sad eyes, dead tail, and ears with no hope. Are you familiar with ERP? The software actually changes the shape of the body, don't you see, and bends the spine region into the shape of an arc, with the head hanging down in front and the tail dragging the ground in the backside. It's a dandy program, and we save it back for extreme emergencies. This appeared to be one of those. I mean, the woman was seriously angry. I had just switched and activated ERP when she arrived. She towered over me and parked her hands on her hips, always a bad sign. Her eyes blazed with unholy light. Her nostrils were flared and her lips were forming words I couldn't hear. At last she spoke. How many times do I have to tell you? Don't chase my turkeys. Yes, but I want them to come up around the house. Right, but Pete, I want them to feel welcome. What's wrong with you? Well, are you so dumb? Ouch. Hey, her rotten little cat. It was complicated, and there was no way I could explain it with looks and wags. I could only hope that the remorse program would do its job and get me out of this mess. She shook her head, muttered, stared off into the distance, shifted her weight from one leg to the other, and brushed a wisp of hair away from her forehead. The seconds crept by, and slowly the ice in her face began to melt. When she spoke again, she seemed closer to tears. I'm turning into a wicked witch. I hate being this way. I don't want to spend my whole life yelling at the dog, but Hank—" She sat down in the grass beside me and looked into my eyes. "Look, if you just do as you're told, we can get along. I don't expect you to be a saint, but I have rules. You're a dog and you have to follow my rules." I didn't know where this was going, but we appeared to be making progress. I went to cautious taps on the tail section. She continued, "The rules are simple. Don't chase my turkeys. Don't scratch my chickens. Don't scatter my chickens. Stay out of the sewer. Don't bark all night. Stay out of the yard. Don't dig in my garden. Stop tormenting my cat. Does any of that seem unreasonable?" Well, I'd been with her right up to the business about tormenting her cat, and that one, she had no idea. He was Mr. Kitty Perfect while she was around. But the minute she went back into the house, she just didn't know. I increased the speed and sincerity of the wags of my tail and beamed her a message. "Sally May, we have a few differences of opinion, but I think we can work this out. No kidding. There's nothing I want more than to patch up our relationship." She looked up at the sky. "We have so much to be thankful for. Our family, our home, good health, this ranch. We're blessed beyond measure. Nobody on this place should ever spend a single day being unhappy. And I should never be—" her voice trembled— "screaming at the dog." Great point. She heaved a sigh and fixed her gaze on me. "Come here, you poor, disobedient, misunderstood bonehead of a dog." I wasn't sure exactly what she meant by that, but she'd said it in a gentle voice, so I dared to move a few steps closer. She extended her hand. "Oh, I'm not going to bite your head off. Come here and I'll pet you. But don't you dare lick my face." Oops, that's exactly what I planned to do. So it was a good thing she'd given me a heads up. With Sally May, we have to suppress licks on the face, licks on the ankles. And moved another step closer, and she swept me into her arms. I was amazed. She pulled me into a hug, and we're talking about a firm embrace with her cheek pressed against the top of my head. "Ugh, you smell awful." It was one of the tenderest moments we'd ever experienced. I'm sorry I lost my temper and screamed and turned into an old hag. But Hank, please stop chasing my turkeys, okay? Was this touching or what? This was the moment we'd been hoping for and working towards. The event that would turn our relationship around. Yes, we could do it. I would take a pledge never to chase the turkeys again, unless her scheming little cat. No, I couldn't go on blaming the stupid cat for all of my problems. This was my life, by George, and from this day forward. I didn't know how this happened. Actually, I don't know how it happened. I do know how it happened, and it was an incredible piece of bad luck. See, just as we had reached this precious moment in our relationship, a fly landed on my right ear and began drilling. I went to ear flicks, hoping to dislodge the little heathen. But he kept drilling. It hurt. And we're talking about serious, big-time hurt. So what's a dog supposed to do? I jerked my head upwards with a mighty heave, and I'm not sure I can go on with this. I mean, it was so dreadful. Could we please talk about something else? I just can't bring myself. We might as well get it over with. Okay, I gave my head a mighty upward jerk, don't you see? And, well, the top of my head hit her on the face. Hard. Below the left eye. Oops. For a long moment we were enveloped in a deadly, choking silence. Her head moved her hand moved to her eye and felt around. At last she spoke. If you gave me a black eye. She scrambled to her feet, bent at the waist, and brought her face right down to mine. The skin below her eye seemed to be turning blue. I have to teach vacation Bible school this morning. She whirled around and headed back to the house in a rapid walk. She hadn't gone more than 50 steps when she stopped and looked back at me. Idiot! Leave my turkeys alone! She stormed away and didn't look back. But I heard what she said. I hope you're happy. Well, I wasn't happy. I felt terrible. I mean, you talk about lousy luck. We'd been so close to patching things up. We'd hugged and bonded and everything. She'd apologized for screeching at me and saying hateful things, and now she was back to screeching and saying hateful things. It appeared that our relationship had fallen back into ruins. And the saddest part was that it had all been caused by one measly fly. One measly fly and a certain slithery, slimy little creep of a cat. Could I blame Pete for a fly that had drilled a hole in my ear and caused my head to leap up and collide with Sally Mae's cheek? Of course I could. If he hadn't actually caused it, he wished that he had caused it, and that was close enough. You know, dogs bring a very important perspective on world history. All those wars and famines and riots we hear about, dig deep and guess what you'll find at the bottom of it? A cat. Cats have caused 97% of all of the misery and turmoil in the... I couldn't figure out how the little snot had lured me into chasing the turkeys. I did not understand it. It left me speechless. See, I'd known that Pete and I were engaged in a deadly game of chess. I'd been alert to his tricks, on guard, watching his every move and gesture, and still I got rolled. You know, it takes a great deal of courage to defend the position that cats are stupid. When they keep winning, it really messes up the argument. But I will continue to... He makes me sick. The point to take home from all of this is that in certain mysterious ways, Pete had injured Sally Mae's face, and that we all needed to know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Which brings us to another dreary subject. Drover. He would get a fair and balanced trial, but we already knew the outcome. He needed a jailhouse, is what he needed, and I was just the dog to give it to him. I took an indirect route to the machine shed. I had no reason to suppose that my presence near the house and yard would cause eruptions of joy, shall we say. So I made a wide loop out into the horse pasture and came in front in the west. I was walking along, preparing myself for the upcoming trial, when suddenly I found myself standing nose to nose with a cow, a red cow with big horns and an orange tag in her left ear, bearing the number 35. Those details will become very important later on, but somehow they didn't register in the memory banks. I was busy, on my way to court, and no mood to deal with cattle issues. So I gave her a bark. "Out of the way, you old bat!" That might have been the wrong approach. She dropped her head, snorted like a buffalo, and pawed the ground and came a-hooking. I won't go into detail, but it was a close call and a near miss. I managed to escape, but it was a little tense there for a while. Then I resumed my march to the courthouse, and suddenly it hit me like a goose falling out of the sky. Red cow, horns, tag, number 35. That was the phantom cow. I had just come face to face with... Hang on. We need to stop right here and pull up her file. See, I'd had some dealings with this cow, and she wasn't normal. Normal cows are herd animals. They stay with the bunch. The phantom cow stayed off by herself and lived in a solitary life. I mean, like a hermit. During the day, she hid out in the bushes along the creek or stayed out in the canyon north of the headquarters and came out at night to graze. That is normal behavior for a deer. It's not normal for a cow. For months at a time, nobody saw her, and we never knew where she might turn up. A barbed wire fence meant nothing to her, and she went wherever she wanted. She didn't even come in to feed in the wintertime, which tells you just how weird she was, because cattle are gluttons in the wintertime. Show them a sack of free food, and they'll run over you to steal a bite. The phantom cow dined alone, lived alone, hated people and dogs, stayed away from the civilization, yet I had just caught her hanging out around ranch headquarters. What was the deal? It was a dark, disturbing mystery that eventually led me into... We don't have time to go into it right now. Don't forget, I was on my way to Drover's court-martial. But keep the phantom cow in mind. She will return like a bad dream, and when she does, you will be scared into next week. Honest.